There we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Once again, what has it been? 3 weeks in the making of this one. We're back for an absolutely killer slate, the last pay-per-view card of the year, and a good one. Let me tell you that. I am so hyped for this card, and I am even more hyped to be joined by this beauty of a man here at LiamPicksFights. Homie, how we doing, man?
I'm doing quite well, Gordo. I'm really excited. I think that we've got an excellent slate of fights to end out the year on pay-per-view, and I've got a pretty decent amount of action here. Had a couple bets get canceled already, unfortunately, but I think there's a lot of decent spots on this card. There's a lot of fun matchups, a lot to sink your teeth into here. And sometimes, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel with these UFC cards, trying to find anything of interest, trying to find anything worth betting on. And I think this week, it's kind of the reward for all the hard work we do. And this is going to be a really fun one, man. So I'm excited to break this one down with you. I got a lot of thoughts, a lot of action, and ready to rock and roll. Let the chips fall where they may, brother.
Exactly. Well, I know that we are also honored to be joined by ChanceWagers. He'll be here in a bit, but for now, we're going to break down this these prelims. Actually, we lost one today with the weigh-ins, but I am super, super hyped for this card. Just like Carter's. What's going on, Carter? How you doing? And I'm actually so hyped for this card. I'm doing a giveaway. Hopefully, everyone's checked out my DFS. Make sure that everyone's commenting their DraftKings username and their top 3 scores over there. I'm giving up some money. Who doesn't want some free money, right? So after you're done listening to this, go check out that video. I was super happy for Liam to send into stuff too. I think that video turned out really, really well, actually. So we got some great takes on that one. And yeah, check that out before tomorrow night's card. But with that being said, we are ready to get it started. We have for you guys 14 fights now. I think that includes a Snellbone being off. Yeah, 14 fights now. And I'm loving it. And the very first one of the day, I'm having some action on that one too. Priscilla Cashewere versus Jillian Robertson. We finally got a Canadian after 1 week off of having no Canadian last week. My girl Jillian Robertson, battle the blue hair versus the red hair. What do you got? I think before I toss it over to you, though, Priscilla Cashewere misses weight, plus 120. 3 pounds overweight, 129 pounds. This is a spot really where it's striker versus grappler, in my opinion. And I have my fair share of takes, but I'm going to let you take this one. How are you seeing it?
Sure, man. I could tell you right off the rip, this is a fight where I have 1 unit of action basically spread across 2 different bets. And I took a share of Jillian Robertson to win the fight by KO TKO. One of the things I try and do when I make prop bets is I try and oppose the narrative. If there's a big favorite, they're supposed to win the fight one way, but they have multiple paths. I like to try and pick the road less traveled by, to be poetic about it. And so in this case, everybody's thinking that Jillian Robertson's going to get a submission here. It's going to be easy work. I think she's going to get the fight to the ground. I don't think that Priscilla Cashewere has great takedown defense, although never hurts to have an extra couple pounds trying to defend those takedowns. So I will just say, I targeted the fight in 2 ways, right? I targeted it first on Jillian Robertson to win the fight by KO TKO at plus 550. I also then targeted fight ends by KO TKO at plus 333. And the reason for that is because Priscilla Cashewere, right, if you try and assign her win equity in this contest, I think a lot of it has to be wrapped up in a KO here. She doesn't have tremendous minute winning potential. She throws pretty recklessly on the feet. She's a little hittable in her own right, but she throws with some decent power. Jillian Robertson's not a very comfortable striker. She's done okay in some of her fights. The Miranda Maverick fight comes to mind. She didn't look as out of place on the feet in that fight, but overall, that's not where her game functions the most comfortably. And I think that she's going to get this fight to the ground. But if she gets tired, if she runs out of gas, if she gets discouraged, Priscilla Cashewere does throw with some heat. Jillian Robertson, I wouldn't put it completely out of the wheelhouse for her to check herself out if she doesn't think the fight is winnable anymore. And so for all those reasons, I think, a good way to cover my basis is to play the fight ends by KO and Jillian KO. And that gives me 2 good plus money options. I could compound the winnings. If Jillian gets the KO, it's just absolute gravy for me. But if Jillian doesn't get the KO, I cover my own ass. Overall, my unit exposure is just 1 for this fight. and I don't play the big favorite at a big chalk price here. I don't want to get out over my skis doing something like that. And in addition, it's not the most parlayable card, in my opinion. If you had gotten in on that Jillian Robertson minus 275, I get where you're coming from. And I think that was also potentially a parlay piece, maybe. But at minus 400, I don't know where you're expecting to extract much of an edge on Jillian Robertson, who just isn't that bankable through a UFC run thus far.
Well, the big thing here for me was I see this fight ending one way, and that's inside the distance. I took the fight doesn't go to decision, which was solidified by Cashewere missing weight today, I think, because my reasoning was you're either going to have Robertson steamroll her right through her. We know on the ground how much Cashewere sucks. I'm a big fan of Robertson on the ground. But then if Robertson's not able to get those takedowns in the later rounds, that added weight doesn't help that. Priscilla is one of those people who's a dog. She'll fight for your money, especially at the end of the round. So I think that I'm really happy. I got minus 150, 1.5 units to win one. Pretty simple spot. I think this fight ends, and I'm hoping for some violence to get the night started off. I wanted to bet my Canadian girl Robertson, but I think I'm going to play her more in DraftKings as a leverage play. There's so many good options up top that I think is going to go really overlooked at her price tag. And I think that she definitely has a path to finish in that very first round. We know she's one of the best in the division on the ground. And we know that Cashewere sucks on the ground. So very simple equation. I'm taking Robertson to finish. I'm taking her to finish early. And that's it. I don't know if I get to the window about it, but the fight doesn't go to decision is the safe play. And I'm absolutely loving it this week. And with that, there's one fight in the books, man. I really like my spots there. Robertson is just one of these people who's been very inconsistent, which is why I don't want to play her at that big favorite price tag. But speaking of inconsistent, we have Randy Costa and his 5-minute gas tank up next. Randy Costa 6-2, Tony Kelly 7-2. Costa's one of those fighters, like I said, gas tank issues. He's super dynamic in that very first round and a half, and I love his skill set, but it diminishes. And I hate to bet on fighters who have no gas tank. Tony Kelly, on the other hand, though, is someone who I don't think is that skilled in the first place. We know that Tony Kelly's been very hittable, and we mentioned it or chanced it on the DFS videos that he just gets hit all the time. So this is a spot where if it was a 1.5 round fight, you take Tony Costa all day, but it's getting me kind of nervous. I like the fight doesn't go. I like Costa in those early rounds, and I like him GPP plays, but I have no action on this one yet. What about you? Do you got anything riding on this one yet?
Yeah, so this isn't anything I've gotten a tracked play down on at this point. But, if I was to get involved on a side here, I would probably be on the Tony Kelly side because the ABCs, they'd always bet on cardio. And, I also think that if you just look at who's a more natural fighter between the two of these guys, I think Tony Kelly is the more natural fighter from like a toughness and a grittiness, perspective. That Costa breakdown last time, how much of that was cardio? How much of that was bright lights and pressure? How much of that was
getting punched in the face?
Yeah. Well, really, what I was going to say was just like being on the other end. Like there's some guys that can do martial arts, and then there's some guys that can fight. And I think that he's a great martial artist. He's got incredible skills, and nobody could deny that. But he's kind of talked about himself. He's not really the most natural fighter out there. And that's kind of what I see when I watch him compete. He's when things are going well, they're going oh so well, but he's like a guy who's got a big smile on his face in the octagon, different kind of guy than a lot of these guys who look like, they just got done, mugging somebody. And I say that again, with all due respect, but different kind of fighters. Right. And I think Tony Kelly's more the guy who will shiv you in the back, and take your money than Randy Costa, who seems like a guy who'd shake your hand and ask how you're doing. He seems like a nice guy, is the point I'm trying to make. And I just think Tony Kelly in this spot, if he doesn't die, is probably going to start to look like supreme value at the end of the first round. That being said, I wanted to take a live entry here on the Kelly side. To make sure he doesn't die in the first round. He is hittable, like you said. He is a little bit wild, and he's a little bit loose coming into range. He could definitely get cracked here. But I just think that he's probably going to be able to clinch up the fight a little bit if he's able to do that, if he's able to wear on him, if he's able to grapple. I thought that I had some marginal interest in Kelly to win by submission at plus 650. I had some marginal interest because if you saw the Randy Costa submission loss, to Brandon Davis. That's not very good. Defensive grappling also looked like a cardio collapse in that fight. But really, it was just because he faced resistance again. And Brandon Davis, has had his chin cracked since, but at the time was just a tough, durable guy who hasn't really had a ton of other success in the UFC. So I think, there's a little bit of recency bias, in my opinion, cooked into the Randy Costa side, which is that he really impressed us in a loss last time. But you always got to temper that a little bit with it was still a loss. We haven't seen him on the other end of this loss show I've made these improvements yet, and you're laying the chalk behind him, right? So it's like, for all those reasons, not something I love getting behind at the money line price, but I can understand why people want it for DraftKings because I do think he's more likely to get the early finish. That being said, sneaky play for DraftKings is Tony Kelly. And the reasoning, guys, I shouldn't have to spell this out, but I will, is that Tony Kelly will still be around in rounds 2 and 3. And if Randy Costa finds a way to check himself out, that's a finish for our boy Tony Kelly, with or without him exerting as much pressure as he needs. On top of that, he's got an actual viable path, which is that he's probably the better grappler in the matchup anyway. So if he can impose a skill set on this guy as he starts to get tired, who would be surprised? Not me. So I have, small shares, untracked, Tony Kelly money line, Tony Kelly round 3 at plus 2,500, I think it was.
Yep,
Jeez.
that's what I got too.
So come on, had to. And honestly, I think that round 2 and round 2 sub were the same price. So I'll probably be playing a tiny bit of Kelly round 2.
Well, your takes are really good for DraftKings. Whisper agrees with you there, and that's my big thing too. Is I have a big tournament called the Ironman where I got to put a lineup every week, and 2 weeks left, so I'm looking to play it really safe these last 2 weeks, and I'm like, down low, there is no safe option this week, and I was really debating where I want to go because I want to get my newness in there, I want to get my top end options, and I think Tony Kelly's where I'm going to go. I have him in my original lineup right now that I'm sticking with, and I think that if I just cover my bases with a bet on Costa round 1, that'll really help. I also have a ticket for Tony Kelly round 3 plus 2,500. I thought that was insane. But yeah, I think that this is a live spot for sure. There's always that opportunity that Costa finishes in round 1, but Tony Kelly's never been finished. I think he's a pretty durable guy. So if he's still alive, there's no question that he's the more durable guy. If you think he's better on the ground, I think that that's definitely that as well. It's not something I necessarily saw. I think it's going to be a stand-up fight. But yeah, what are you going to say there?
Dude, and with all due respect, like Kevin Aguilar, probably as offensively potent, not quite as dynamic, but he hits people, he hurts people. Kevin Aguilar, especially on the regional scene, was having a good amount of success. And Tony Kelly, with very little experience, was able to, give him a competitive scrap there, loses the split decision as a 5-0 fighter against a 10-1 fighter. So somebody with double his experience, he's getting out there and trying to earn it in LFA. And then the Kai Kamaka fight, excellent fight. I think it really shows his heart, his grit, his toughness, his determination. This guy, Tony Kelly, I just don't think he's going to get hit with a punch and look for a way out here. And so for that reason, somebody who's going to fight for your money in that plus 165 range, I just want to see more from Randy Costa before I'm going to back him at the chalk price.
Well, I think this is another one where I'm going to have a lot of Tony Kelly on DraftKings, especially that low price tag, and that definitely path to victory. I don't want to have my money behind it too much. I'll take that round 3 sprinkle. Plus 2,500 is beautiful. But when it comes to playing the money line, I think I'm going to pass this one. Again, like I said, if it was a 5-minute fight, I'd be over Costa all day. But yeah, I'll have some Tony Kelly on DraftKings. So that's a pretty good look there. I appreciate your take, and let's move right along. Next fight of the day, we have Ryan Hall versus Derrick Minner. Love me some Ryan Hall. He is 8-2 versus Derrick Minner, 26-12. Ryan Hall just got absolutely nuked last time out against Ilia Topuria. Yeah, Topuria is too smart for that. Anyways, Hall is a ace on the ground. I'm sure you love the guy. I bet Mr. BJJ himself, but he's so fun to watch. I love showing him the clips of him just shrugging after he wins. That heel hook is nasty. You know better than me. What are they called for the rolls get in the ground? The Imani rolls or
Imanari.
Imanari. See, I gotta refresh myself on this, but he's very entertaining to watch. Decent guy in Derrick Minner, who's been around for a long time, vet of the game, vet of the sport. but he's been subbed a few times. I think that Ryan Hall definitely has an opportunity to get a sub here if Minner does want to go to the ground. I know Whisper mentioned it in the video, but another one where I just think it's going to be a violent spot. I think that if it goes to the ground, Ryan Hall is probably live to finish there. I know Minner's been subbed a few times, so I'm on the under here, and I'm really excited to hear what you got to say on this one.
Yeah, I'm also on the under here, and
Fair.
I think that that's a good way to target this fight. You know, it's a little bit hard to buy stock in either of these guys right now, and for different reasons. You know, Ryan Hall just probably aging out of his athletic prime, second career in combat sports here. Already made waves, you know, changed a little bit of the way people play the leg lock game in jiu-jitsu, you know, innovated a lot from the 50-50 position. And that's part of what makes him dangerous in the UFC. You know, I think that Derrick Minner, while a dangerous submission grappler, is not a high level operator in the same way that Ryan Hall is on the ground. I think that, you know, when you see Derrick Minner putting somebody through, you know, the quote unquote series, it's because he's exerting all of his physical energy. If you look at him, make the weight today, you know, I know you didn't get to see everybody on the scales today, Gordo. So if you look at Derrick Minner, this just popped into my mind. I know you asked beforehand, but this is something that popped into my mind right now. Derrick Minner needed the box of shame to make the weight. And when he did make it, he shouted, yes! Like he was like fired up to have made it. He did not want to cut any more weight. And he then, you know, gave a flex off with his underwear half hanging down. And the guy is like pretty dang built up, big shoulders, you know, kind of very strange frame on Derrick Minner. You know, kind of looks like the miniature version of the Derek Brunson Crash Bandicoot meme. But I think that this is a guy in Derrick Minner who makes mistakes, you know, throughout his fighting career because he kind of likes to just get into that panic spastic series right from outset every time. And, you know, if he's able to do that and you don't offer a tremendous amount of resistance, a la Charles Rosa, you know, that's about the only way he can last in a fight for 15 minutes. Because truth be told, you know, Derrick Minner doesn't really go the distance in his fights, win, lose, or draw. You know, he spends himself looking for a finish. And then if he doesn't get it, he's left out to dry, you know. And I think that the Darren Elkins fight, perfect example of that. You know, I thought that was a spot where Derrick Minner was probably going to justify his price. I'm like, you know, this guy should go out there and run him through the series. And he did run him through the series, wasn't able to get a finish. And then he gets the tables turned on him by Darren Elkins, who admittedly is a freaking soldier of fortune and doesn't really quit on himself. But I don't know that we have any reason to believe that Ryan Hall is going to quit on himself in this spot either. You know, Ryan's got a clever game. He's a weirdo, but I don't think he's going to get grapple effed by Derrick Minner for more than 3 minutes. I don't believe that's going to happen. And I think that the longer that Derrick Minner engages in a fight like that, the more likely it is that he gets submitted. I don't think he's as clever. I don't think he's as crafty. And I think he's way more prone to making mistakes. When you see Ryan Hall in that Ilia Topuria fight, it would have taken something remarkable. It would have taken a Hail Mary. It would have taken, you know, Ryan Hall doing something incredible to find a win there. He's the way less athletic guy. He had virtually no path in that fight because Ilia Topuria isn't a primary striker. He's a primary grappler that could meet Hall in a wrestling perspective, keep the fight upright, and he's dangerous as fuck on the feet. Whereas Ryan Hall has a good point fighting style on the feet to complement his ground game. The only way he's going to damage people on the feet is if they're bad strikers who are frustrated and also can't wrestle him, like Darren Elkins, with all due respect, who is then running onto kicks and punches and dropping himself. You know, I don't think Ryan generates a tremendous amount of power, but he's smart and he knows what's going to happen in all likelihood when he starts to frustrate people and move away from them in space, which is they're going to run onto him. And then he puts a hard obstacle in their way. That's the Ryan Hall striking meta. You know, it's not that crazy. I think he's pretty decent at it. I think that, you know, when he throws those spin kicks, they're slow motion, but they tend to be on target. You know, the guy's obviously a dedicated martial artist. He's not an incredible athlete. Darrick Minner strikes me as a guy who is like an athlete bully that doesn't really have great cardio. And I think that the realm in which he wants to bully fighters is a realm that puts Ryan Hall in a good position to finish. Can I see a positional TKO for Minner? I can. That's where I think his path to winning this fight is most likely. I don't think either one of these guys has a lights out gas tank. But if I had to back somebody for cardio superiority here, it would be Ryan Hall, especially if it's a if it's a grappling based fight. This is where the guy spends his life on the mats. He's a teacher, he's an instructor, and he's a world class practitioner. I think that if Darrick Minner decides to come out and grapple in this fight, he's fucked. So give me Ryan Hall. Give me Ryan Hall submission. I'm not going to play the money line here. 2-1 is very steep. I even would consider a Ryan Hall inside the distance play because it's very close, but I don't have great access on the books that I use, so it will probably be a Hall sub play for me. Hall sub 2, Hall sub 3. That's probably what I'll look at in this fight. Although I also don't rule out a Hall sub 1. I just don't know what the odds would be like on that. Normally, the first round, they kind of shave down the props for that. And I do think that Hall is likely to come back in this fight, even if he loses the first round.
Well, my thought process was, okay, what's the biggest win criteria for Hall? It's probably a finish. And then I look at Minner, and he's a very violent guy himself. And like DFS Whisperer said in the video, he's the type of guy to be stupid enough to go to the ground with Hall, right? So Minner's been sub 7 times. Great recipe for success for Hall. I got minus 125, I think it was. Let me confirm. I think it was like minus 125 for the fight doesn't go. And for that reason, I was all in. I got a unit on that. I think it's a great spot. I think Hall is the one to finish, really, but we just saw him die last time out. So if Minner gets on top and rains down blows, you never know how he's going to react. Minner's not Ilya Taporia, but oh well. It's a spot where I'm liking the under. I will like any shot on Hall himself too, but this is one where I'm liking the under more than anything. And on DraftKings, there's a lot of really good options up top, so I don't know. Minner's one I'm probably going to stay away from because if I had money on him directly, especially on DraftKings, and I see him go to the ground with Ryan Hall, I'd just be so infuriated. So I'm going to just keep it moving with that. Take the under. That's my spot there, man. All right. Next one up, we have Erin Blanchfield 7-1 versus Miranda Maverick 9-3, and this is one where I'm really waiting to see what you got to say. Like Tony Kelly was, Erin Blanchfield is my underdog of the week for DraftKings. But I can't get there in the window, and I don't know why. What side are you on here, and are you going to help me get there in Blanchfield, or are you on the Maverick train this week?
If I could just, give full disclosure to the viewers, this is the fight that I spent the least time capping this week, and the reason for that was simple. I had really smart people that I respect share opinions on both sides, pretty sizable wagers on both sides. It's a fight that I looked at and didn't have great conviction either way. My New York bias would tilt me towards the Blanchfield side here. But I will say, having seen the weigh-ins with these ladies, I think that the more musculature is on the Maverick side pretty significantly. And my concern with that is that, I've often been wrong about women's MMA fights where I thought somebody had a technical edge, a skill-based edge, and they end up getting out-physicaled in dominant fashion by the other person, despite what I thought were some good skills on tape. And so I think Erin Blanchfield has legit skills. I think she can wrestle fairly well. I think that she can grapple quite well. Renzo Gracie jiu-jitsu, shout out. But I think in addition to that, her striking's not horrendous. It's nothing to write home about at this point. But I don't think it's going to have her badly outmatched here by Maverick. And so I think in a lot of ways, this is a close fight. This is a fight where I probably favor the cardio of Blanchfield a little bit more down the stretch. I kind of like the finishing upside of Blanchfield a little bit more in this contest. I think that she has a path to submit Miranda Maverick, who's given up her back, who's shown a couple of defensive liabilities in past fights. And she's been able to work her way out of bad positions as well. But I don't think Miranda Maverick runs away with the optics of her fights. She's still very young in her career. I think she's got some things to shore up. I don't think she's going to run away with the fight. And so for that reason, I can definitely understand the dog shots on Blanchfield. But again, if physicality is the deciding factor in this fight, I do think Miranda Maverick just looks more physically imposing to me. She's a couple years older, I believe, so she's probably just a little bit more physically mature. And that could be a problem here for an otherwise very talented Erin Blanchfield. If you look at the style analog that gave her problems, it's Tracy Cortez, somebody that can wrestle, somebody that's pretty physical. I think that could be an X factor in the fight. But I don't rate either one of these girls as like a supreme killer that's like, destined to win this fight. I think it's a very competitive fight. No matter what, I think we're probably going to get a close decision here. But if you're going to make me pick a side here, I'd pick Erin Blanchfield at this point, reluctantly, with my New York Rangers hat on from my New York studio. Everybody take that for what it's worth.
Well, okay. My logic was I capped this. I think Erin Blanchfield's going to win, but I missed on my line value. I would have loved to have her at plus 130, plus 125, and I missed that. And for that reason, I'm going to pass. Miranda Maverick has always been someone who I'm not the highest on. I bet against her in the past. I think she was. Did that fight actually go through? I'm running blank right now. It's been a busy day, but did she actually fight Robertson? I think that one pulled through. We pulled out, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
she did. She did. She fought Robertson.
Oh yeah, she destroyed her, didn't she? She muscled her way to the win, I think.
I think that it was like weirdly competitive on the feet at various points. But yeah, Maverick was able to get some takedowns, I think. I think she was able to stuff some from Jillian. I can't remember it all off the top of my head.
Oh yeah, that was
I definitely did fight.
That was her last one. I'm drawing a blank here. But anyways, what I'm trying to say was I bet Robertson there, and I think that Blanchfield that definitely has a path to victory. Blanchfield really impressed me her last time out. So yeah, I'm going to pick her to win here again. I have a lot of her on DraftKings for that reason. I don't have the best line. I'm not going to bet it. I'm going to stay away. I have a lot of action on this card, so I'm going to cheer for her. I'm going to have a lot of her in my lineups, but no official bet from me. All right, let's move it right along. Next fight up, we have Andre Muniz, 21-4, Eric Anders, 14-5. Whew, this is another one where I missed my opportunity. I wanted to bet on Muniz. I remember that vivid snapping of Jakari's arm in half. And I think that I'm not a biggest fan of Anders either. And this is a spot where I really see him to win. But the line keeps getting wider. I missed my opportunity. I think he was like minus 140 earlier, and I missed that. I don't know. Muniz was a guy who I think has cardio deficiencies. I know he's a third-degree black belt. He's stand on the ground, but he didn't impress me too much. Other than the Jakari win. So I don't know. It's a spot where I'm tempted to play it. I'm on the fence. And if you convince me enough, I will be betting Andre Muniz. But I got to hear what you got to say first.
So I do have a bet on Andre Muniz here, but I don't want to give the impression that Eric Anders can't win this fight, that he's, that he's completely out over his skis or something. I think Andre Muniz is just like very, very good on the ground. I think that he is a solid enough wrestler that he'll be able to put the fight there when he needs to. I think that he is a fairly low volume, but somewhat effective kickboxer at times. He can find decent body kicks. He can work with his hands and get in the pocket, land a couple effective shots on people, and then work to a clinch from there. He works to leg locks. He works to arm locks, he works to chokes, he works to the back. I think he's got a pretty diverse arsenal in terms of his ground game. And I think in a fight with Eric Anders, Eric is a guy who started fighting in like 2011, coming right out of the Alabama football program. And he was looking for, a job, basically. Like he was looking for the next step in life. And so he started to take up fighting. Obviously, he's a natural athlete, but I don't think that Eric Anders has like the world's deepest repertoire in martial arts. I think that he has been dedicated to an extent since he's been involved with the sport. But you also got to look at the fact that, it's only recently he moved to Fight Ready. He's 34 years old. He's like deep into a martial arts career here. He's already lost a lot of his big prospect opportunities. The main event to Lyoto Machida comes to mind. So, Eric Anders is kind of on the other end of some of those prospect fights, was sort of in the fight for your job and career type position where he was taking on Darren Stewart. First time he takes him on, it's at 185 pounds. he's kind of emptying the clip on the guy and starting to slow down, starting to gas a little bit, throws the knee, gets himself out of there. Then they rebook the fight. It's at 205 pounds. So then he has a fairly sketchy fight with Darren Stewart. I bet on him in that spot because I was like, wow, he just completely tooled the guy in the first one. Now he's just going to pace himself a little better and beat this guy up. No, he needed to wrestle. He needed to, get the guy down. He was having a hard time. He was huffing and puffing at various points too. He was looking to have a little doubt in himself. And I think that he's shown some improvements physically and mentally since going to Fight Ready. I think he's shown some technical improvements as well. But at 34 years old, I'm like, what pace of improvements is he going to make relative to his 31-year-old opponent, who's a big guy in his own right, who is, very talented on the ground, who's got decent passable skills on the feet. And it would be one thing if Eric Anders was like the volume boxer of the year. The guy doesn't throw a tremendous amount of output himself. And so for that reason, I got behind Muniz here for a small money line play. And I think that Muniz inside the distance makes sense. I think fight doesn't go the distance kind of makes sense here as well. If Eric Anders is to win this fight, I think more often than not, he is winning the fight by knockout. He's not the most prolific knockout artist, but he does carry his power to the third round. He's got multiple instances of stopping fights late. We have seen a little bit of gassing in the fights where the grappling wasn't coming as easily for Muniz. I think that Muniz is probably going to have early success. I think that he can bank early rounds. I think that he could also, keep this fairly low pace down the stretch and then win the fight comfortably. But I think if Eric Anders is turning up on him at any point, that could be a problem for him. Eric does hit with some power, and he can get loose and start really throwing bombs at various points. And I think that's the real concern. We also see that Muniz throws a lot of kicks. And so if you're up on 1 foot and you get hit with a big punch, it could be a disastrous evening. So I will, share that, again, this is a fight where sharp people I know are divided, right? I think a lot of sharp people, a lot of people with skin in the game that I respect are on the Muniz side here on the money line, or to win by sub, or to win inside the distance, or just, again, like some kind of play on the Muniz side here. But I also know, one of the sharpest people that I know, multi-unit play on Eric Anders here at the underdog price, and also a multi-unit play on Anders by KO TKO at plus 280. So, don't want to give away anybody else's information. Just want to disclose that very sharp people, opinions I respect on both sides of this fight. So I wouldn't make a massive investment either way unless you have personal conviction. Don't take my word for it, but I think that, I like Muniz here based on the tape study that I did. I think that he has more long-term upside. I think he's got more paths to finish this fight. And so I'm going to ultimately side with him here against a tough challenge in Eric Anders.
Well, I was liking what you were saying. I was going to look at it, and Muniz's money line is way down. He's like minus 160 some places now. I missed my opportunity, that's for sure. Don't know if I'm going to get there. I think he'll end up at my Hail Marys. I do think he finishes. But yeah, I think that BJJ is the big story too. If I'm going to bet on I bet on Muniz against Souza. I'll cash that into the distance prop. But with that in mind, I'm going to have to bet him again in this spot here too. But it's a tough one. Anders is a dog. I don't know. I think I'm with Whisperer there. I think I should side with that BJJ, but I don't know if I'm going to get to the window with it just because I miss my line value so much. And with that,
well, dude, I think a lot of his win equity is wrapped up in that submission line, and
I could look
still
at
find the submission line at plus 160. If you can get double chance, I think the best way to play him is sub or decision.
Fair. Well, I completely agree. I like that there, and we move right along to Bruno Silva, 21-6 versus Jordan Wright, 12-1. And let me get this out of the way. Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja, never really been inside the second round, but he's got no experience in those later rounds. He has a very, very questionable chin. But man, I saw some pictures. He looked pretty good at the scales today. And one of these guys who looks like he has potential, looks like he's got good skills. And then we don't know if we get to see them. He gets dropped. He gets brutally finished by Joaquin Buckley. He gets finished in the Contender Series. tough one to judge. Really to see where he's at. And he's facing guy Bruno Silva, who's not really the best matchup for him. And Silva's a tough guy with a lot of power who's really going to put that chin to test. I think it's a spot that, once again, seems to be the trend of the day. That's going to finish. I think that line's completely gone. I was able to snag it before it kaboom to whatever the fight doesn't go to decision line is now. But I think it's pretty simple. I think it's, if Silva wants to chin check him, I think that's definitely an opportunity. But Wright's got a very skilled game plan. I know that Sanchez was able to wrestle him before he gassed out, and Wright looks to have decent wrestling and ground game as well. So I don't know. I think that the smart play is Silva. I think Silva's got power in his hands that'll translate through all 3 rounds and can definitely finish him. But I wouldn't be surprised if Wright was able to pull off another one of those tough finishes that he's able to do. So I know the fight doesn't go to decision. I am excited to hear what you got to say about this one, my friend.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to get on the fight doesn't go to decision, but they had kind of gotten smart to it. It's like the fight doesn't go the distance, like minus 450, minus 500 and all this shit. And to be honest with you, man, that for me takes a little bit of the sting out of it. It takes a little bit of the fun out of it for me. And so for that reason, I did look at the under 2.5 here. I looked at the, as an alternate betting total, I looked at the fight doesn't start round 3, which I played in a lot of different parlays for minus 182. It has completely ballooned up since then to reflect more of that fight doesn't go the distance line. So glad I got in on that when I did. Have some Hail Mary parlays on Bruno Silva round 1 and 2 at minus 110. I think that's a good way to shorten his price. Wright has never been outside of the first 2 rounds. And so that's why you get the doesn't start round 3 play from me. That's why you get the under 2.5 rounds play from me. And that's also why you get Bruno in rounds 1 and 2. And, with all that said, though, I think that if you're playing this from a money line perspective, they know that you want to play blindado, so you can't. That's the sad reality of this from a betting perspective. If you're a typical money line bettor, it's just not advisable to put down 3.4 units to win 1 unit, in my opinion, on Silva this weekend. And I think he wins the fight. But you just have to think about, what is my edge? What's my margin here? And it's going to be very small. And this isn't a guy who's going to push a grappling heavy game plan for you and take away some of that variability of a cage fight. He's a guy who embraces the variability of a cage fight. He likes to get into brawls. He likes to go out there and swing. And if we know anything about Jordan Wright, it's that he's capable of finishing. Not to say he's the world's best fighter. I think that Bruno's a better fighter than him. I think he's going to hit harder. I think he's going to land clean. I think he's going to land effectively. I think he's got, better durability. And I think he's going to knock this guy out probably in the first round. I think it's very possible he knocks him out in the second round. But I also think it's not an outside chance that, we see him get chin checked in this spot. I think that that's a slight possibility here. I think more likely than anything would be, we've seen now that Silva gives up his back. He gets taken down. I haven't seen enough from Wright to say that he's this jiu-jitsu ace, that he's going to be a threat, but he is willing. He's a willing back taker. He's a willing neck snatcher. So it's not like it's outside the realm. Andrew Sanchez didn't really do a very good job of maximizing those positions to try and affect offense from a jiu-jitsu standpoint in his last fight. And I kind of tried to tell everybody that Andrew Sanchez was going to death gas in the third round. You're welcome. But with that being said, I don't know that this is that different of a matchup. I could see Wright having that grappling success that the sharp gamblers are expecting him to have in round 1. The problem with this guy is just if he doesn't get that early success, if he doesn't get that early finish, I do think he slows down a little bit. I think that his durability is not great. And, it's not even fully reflected in his professional record. If you go back and watch, though, I know you've seen it. The Fluffy Hernandez knockout is like bad and it's early. And Fluffy Hernandez is a jiu-jitsu guy. He's like a back and forth banger kind of guy. He's not this one hitter quitter, knock you out with the first punch kind of guy. And Silva is that. Silva is that guy. He is that guy everywhere he's ever been. He's probably on every designer steroid that has ever been created. I say with all due respect and without any liability. But I think that, this guy probably going to put a showcase on. When I look at who the UFC is trying to promote out of this one, I do think that they like this guy Silva. I think they want him to have a streak of knockouts and send him right up the ranks of the division. This guy was fighting in pretty big fights outside the UFC, and he's come in now. They've put him in his weakest positions, really. Like Wellington Turman, what was his game plan in that fight? Get on the back, submit this guy. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, fell off for 1 second, and he's dead. And it's like that's the kind of power this guy has. You fall off, you lose position, you mess up, you slip, one punch, and you're snoring. And I think in addition to that, Jordan Wright, if he gets hit and he's not snoring, he might go, fuck this, and quit. Because he has other options in life. And I just think that when that's the case, maybe you get a little bit of a different reaction. I think that this Bruno Silva guy is a fighter in every sense of the word. And he'd fight you in an alley somewhere. So I just think that, that might be my conspiracy theory, my tinfoil hat fight prediction. But yeah, I think Bruno Silva is going to beat him up, from the streets.
Well, that's unfortunate because the value there is gone. And where I completely agree with you, so do the bookies. They know what we want. They see a guy in Wright who has no cardio, questionable chin. They're like, all right, let's open up this inside the distance line at minus 180. And it's not fun. I took the fight doesn't go. I think I got it at minus 350 as a parlay piece with somebody we'll talk about later. But it's a pretty square bet. I think this fight finishes. I'm hoping for violence. I'll probably have both sides on DraftKings just in case Jordan Wright wants to pull off a nice little finish himself. But I'm completely with you. I think it's Silva most of the time. Actually, what is Wright's finish line? That's the thing, is because if I do see Wright winning the fight, I probably see him finishing here too. Wright to win inside the distance is plus 400, which is okay. Nothing too special. I'm not going to play it, but
if anything, man, I would probably play
his sub
line. Yeah, if I was going to play Wright, I would play his sub line.
Plus 1,100.
And I could be crazy there. His money line is a pretty generous price here, but Silva, like the vast majority of his losses are by submission. The market's variable, anything from 700 to plus 1,600 across the market for right submission. So I think line shop that a little bit if you want to get involved on the right side. Silva's been submitted. Wright doesn't proactively grapple all that often in his recent footage, but in his older footage, he definitely did a little bit. So worth a poke.
All right. Well, next up we have the first 50-50 fight of a few of them. Augusto Sakai 15-3-1 versus Tai Tuivasa 13-3. Tai Tuivasa is my boy. I did a shoey last time he won. It's on the video. So it's on Twitter somewhere. So smart of me to have a video of me doing a shoey online, isn't it? But hey, I love the guy. He did exactly what he had to do against Hardy last time out, and good for him. He's got a nice little streak going. Facing guy against Sakai, who just coming off a main event loss where he got knocked out to a guy in Rosenstrike, who, fair enough, guy's got power, but it wasn't the prettiest of knockouts. Sakai's been chin checked a few times recently. I'm on Tuivasa here. Even money. I think that he's got the right momentum in his corner. I think that he's got power in his hands. I think he's got a good style to get rid of to dispatch Sakai in this spot. Sakai was walked down to the fence by Jairzinho, a guy who was walked down by Gain. I mean, it's a spot where if Tuivasa is able to corner him the same way that Rosenstrike was, it's not like Tuivasa doesn't have power in his hands either. So I think this is a spot where Tuivasa wins. Of course, I'm going to give the credit to Sakai and his kickboxing abilities, but power, I think, lies in Tuivasa. Durability, I think, lies with Tuivasa. I'm going to take him to win here. What do you got in this one?
Man, this is a really tricky one for me. When I wrote down my prediction for this fight, I literally have Augusto Sakai via split decision.
Ooh, ugly.
I mean, if you've watched an Augusto Sakai fight, you know that a lot of them are ugly. He can put a decent volume on people as far as I'm concerned. He's not the world's greatest volume striker, but he kind of makes it count when he's in range. He'll throw a bunch of shots and bursts. And I think that does a decent enough job of scoring for the judges. Even if you watch the guy hit pads, he's got pretty pretty rote, simplistic combinations. He's just like throwing 1-2, 1-2, uppercut, knee. Like it's very predictable stuff, which is why some of the higher level guys in the division have snuffed it out pretty quickly. And I don't think it's like outside the realm that Ty could do that here. But I also think, people are getting a little bit ahead of themselves on Tai Tuivasa. And granted, Ty, amongst sharp guys, I know a lot of guys are into the Ty side this weekend. But again, this is another fight where I've seen split action, right? You would expect that. It's a pick'em type price on this fight, which means there's sharp money pulling in either direction in all likelihood. And I think on this one, man, I'm kind of curious to see, what was the market opener? You don't know that off the top of your head, do you? Because I would have thought that Sakai would open up, a fairly decent sized favorite here. No, -110.
Yeah, opened to pick him, and then money came in on Tuivasa, I'm pretty sure. No, money came in on Sakai. Yeah, money came in on Sakai after the opener.
Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me as much. Like, I feel like, if you just naturally back guys who are coming off of losses in the UFC, I actually think you make like slight profit over time because the market gets really low on people when they lose, right? And now it's like Sakai has one loss that's like kind of gassing down the stretch in a 5-round fight where he was very competitive in the early going, which I don't know that people remember that fight. But then you flash forward, he fights Rosenstruik. I bet Rosenstruik in that spot because Rosenstruik has the death touch, ladies and gentlemen. And not to say he puts it on everybody. He's like the lowest volume guy in the world. But when he does throw and land, he puts holes in people's faces. He landed on Sakai and put a hole in the side of his head. He landed on Overeem and punched his lip clean off his face. It's like, yeah, that guy hits different. I don't blame you for getting knocked out in that fight. Granted, he was a little tentative there. He might be a little tentative here. I think a lot of people rushing to bet the unders in this spot. I think that is something I will not be in a rush to do because I think either one of these guys could be tentative here. Greg Hardy, who's not the world's, he's not the class of the division. He's not a bad fighter. He's not the class of the division. He just hurt and rocked Ty very badly in his last fight. I don't think Ty is like an elite level striker. I think he's good. He's got some decent, offensive tools. He's a gangster, right? He doesn't care about getting hit and hurt. But what else does Ty do well? He's not like this proactive offensive grappler. Probably not going to put Sakai on his ass, which is what Overeem had to do because he was getting, touched up a little bit to the body. Sakai works multiple targets. He might be able to find the body shots on Tai Tuivasa, who's a big guy who carries a little bit of extra weight, who, may or may not be in elite fight shape at any given time. You look at Tai Tuivasa's wins in the UFC, I think 5 of them are first-round knockouts. So if you're betting Tai Tuivasa, maybe you bet Tai Tuivasa by first-round knockout. Maybe you bet Tai Tuivasa rounds 1 or 2. Maybe you bet Tai Tuivasa KO. But my question is, if this fight goes to a decision, how comfortable are we that Tai Tuivasa is going to win the fight? I would say not very. I think that at that point, the guy who's probably a little bit more sound in the clinch is Augusto Sakai. He could probably put him along the fence for a little while. He could probably wear on him in that way. Maybe he's not going to shoot takedowns a la Sergey Spivak. Maybe he just lays on them with that big 265-pound frame. I would not be stunned to see that. So I think that is something that lends itself towards the fight going over. I think it's something that lends itself to the fight potentially going to decision. And I think if it becomes a fight that goes to decision, we just know judges kind of like the sloppy metrics from Sakai, even though they don't blow you away on paper. He wins the split decisions, So it's just like I have this sneaky feeling that Sakai is going to grease one, in a fight where he probably gets, maybe touched, hurt early, something like that. I could see that. Or he starts to get chopped down with the leg kicks late in the fight. I could see that. But I think overall, not a fight I want to have huge investment in. I would consider, again, playing Sakai, playing the overs. Haven't gotten involved yet, but that's what I'd look at.
I kept it simple. I think Tuivasa wins this one. Even money. I got a unit on it. I think probably I should have bet it inside the distance because I think his biggest win criteria is that finish, like you said. But I wouldn't be surprised if Sakai came up here. I capped it a bit higher. I had Tuivasa winning this fight more often than not. So I took my shot on it. And you know what? I'll do a shoey. I'll do another one. I don't care. Cheer on the fighters you want to cheer for, right? Would I recommend the bet to anybody? No, it's not one of my most confident. I got a lot of action this week, and I'll tell you for a fact, it's not one of my favorite plays, but I think Tuivasa definitely has a good path to victory here. Despite how sloppy he is, he's got power, and sometimes that's all you need, right? I don't know. I like Bam Bam, and hopefully it does very, very well. So I hope the momentum keeps him going. Would I be shocked if Sakai greases one out? No. But I do think I will take my shot on Tuivasa when he's minus 110. All right, moving right along.
And he's the younger guy, too. He's the younger
Yes.
guy. So I think that's something that's working in your benefit here, for sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your outro there. Just noticed that on the way out, and I was like, you know what? Got to bolster my man Gordo's point. That's a good little tidbit, too.
Well, speaking of young guys, we have Dominic Cruz. No, I'm just kidding. We do have another even money fight, though. Dominic Cruz, 23-3 versus Pedro Munoz, 19-6. I'm tempted to bet Cruz. I think that his elusive footwork will do some justice in this one, but I can't do it. Munoz is a much tougher guy. I think he's a more powerful guy. And if I'm going to bet Cruz, it's probably by decision at this point. But it's another one where I'm really debating what side I want to be on here. Cruz did well. I bet on him against Kenny. And he showed elusive footwork. He showed him to be the Cruz that he's always been, and people are struggling to figure him out. The main thing for me is Munoz wins a lot of his fights by exchanging with people. He's okay to exchange in the pocket, and he's okay to stalk people down, but he doesn't cut off people very well. I think that if he's not able to plant his feet and go ham, that he's going to struggle chasing around Cruz around the cage. And for that reason, I think that Cruz wins the minutes. I think Cruz puts up a decent volume on him. But it's be one of those ones where every time they do meet, I'd be nervous for the power that Munoz does hold. So I don't think I'm going to get it. I think I might sprinkle a bit of sorry, sprinkle's not a word I like to use. Might put like a unit, a half a unit or so on Cruz to win by decision. But that's my thoughts, man. It's one where two different fight styles. How do they meet up, right? And I think Cruz's elusive footwork style may pay dividends here.
Yeah, man, I've seen a lot of takes that are very bullish on the Pedro Munoz side, and I just can't get there based on the recent form. I see a lot of people pointing.
Uh-oh. Not on my end?
There's times he landed leg kicks on Aldo, but for the most part, I felt like Aldo was checking the leg kicks. I felt like Aldo was retracting his leg. I felt like Aldo was not taking the leg kick very cleanly. And I think that Dominic Cruz, who's a student of the sport, is going to learn from that and probably try and implement some of that into his game here as well. In addition, I think that Dominic Cruz, doesn't get enough credit for being a very cerebral fighter. Look at Pedro Munoz his last time out. I think Pedro, never made the right in-fight adjustments, never really switched it up, never knew how to answer Jose Aldo's game plan. And, it was very frustrating to watch. I think that Dominic Cruz, in a similar position, would have changed the game completely, would have tried something new, would have sold out for a finish, would have done something crazy. And that's the kind of guy that I want to back. I think that Pedro, he kind of just has a limited series of ideas that he runs through on a continuous loop. His idea is to get in your face and throw something as often as he can to do some damage and bother you, and consequences be damned. He normally has his hands down. He's just rushing in, waiting in. He's got pretty good durability, so he relies on that. I think that Dominic Cruz should be moving around him, dancing circles around him. At 36, Dom is always prone to get old overnight. But how can I expect Dom to get old overnight here when he's like a year and a half older than Pedro? For Christ's sakes, Pedro is just as old as Dom is. And the difference is one guy is a world champion at that level, the class of the division, always has been. and the other guy isn't. So it for me reminds me of Font Aldo in a way, where everybody looks and says, look at this new modern guy. Look at this game he plays. Look at all the damage he could do. And it all could be true. But they're going to walk this tightrope's edge with a master of the sport who has like supreme understanding of positions, of what they need to do to win, of how to score rounds. Like Pedro Munoz will find a way to lose a close decision. He's done it over and over and over. He's done it over and over and over. I bet on Pedro against Jose Aldo. I thought this is a simple enough game plan. Get out there, kick the man's legs, keep him stationary, find your own shots. He's getting older. He's getting more vulnerable. He's had more time in the cage. This is your time to take advantage. And he had nothing. No creative game plan. Then he's talking about after the fact, maybe we should go down to 125. Maybe we should. I didn't like what I saw there. I didn't like the commitment to the game plan. I didn't feel like Pedro was fighting for my money at a certain point. I felt like he was like, all right, now let's get to the end of the 15. I didn't like that at all, man. And I don't think we saw that from Dominic Cruz. Think of the Cody Garbrandt fight. When Garbrandt took that title from him, he had to take it from Cruz, who tried anything he had, try and yell at him, try and get in his face, try and spit on him. Like Dominic Cruz would have done anything he could to get that fight back, and he just couldn't figure it out. That's okay. That happens, right? He had several fights in a year for the first time in years. Tough out for him. I bet Casey Kenny last time because I felt like this is a guy who's got the answers. He's going to throw leg kicks. He's going to press his own grappling. He's not going to get out wrestled by Dom Cruz. He's the younger, fresher guy. He should have the answers. He should have the durability. It didn't matter. Dom Cruz had the vet savvy. Dom Cruz had the knowledge. Dom Cruz had the better movement. Dom Cruz is very good at I touch you, you don't touch me. And that's a hard guy to beat. And I think in this fight especially, Pedro Munoz has had a hard time touching people. Like Frankie Edgar can't help but get knocked out by these guys in 15 minutes now. He went 25 minutes with Pedro Munoz. He landed the more effective shots. He outbacks him. It's like it was close, but that's happening with Frankie. Not all that long ago. Jose Aldo dancing circles around him, a guy of similar age. So all these aging legends are able to dance circles around Pedro, make him miss, and land their shots. And we're saying that Dominic Cruz has no chance to do so, or that he should be, even money in the spot. I just find it a little surprising. So I'm going to have some shares of Dominic Cruz by fight time. I'm waiting to see where this line moves. I already have some Dominic Cruz tracked by decision. I don't have.
Where'd you get that
yet. I think that was at plus 175.
That's best available right now.
Heck yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I got plus 175 there. And then I also have some overs. I think I got over 2.5 at minus 168 or something a couple nights ago on FanDuel. That was a ridiculous price, in my opinion. But I also will just point out that, again, one of the sharper guys that I communicate with about these fights, he thinks there might be some value on the under 2.5. If you talk to anybody out there about this fight, everybody's talking about the fight's going to go over. Yeah, and even for unconventional reasons, just when the market is full conviction that one thing's going to happen, it's like guaranteed to go the other way. It's hysterical, but that's just my experience is that's how it goes. Chandler and what's it called? Chandler and Gaethje. It's a certainty that fight's going to end inside the distance, and they go the distance. Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker. It's a certainty that ends inside the distance, except it doesn't. Freaking what's her name? Dern and Rodriguez. It's a certainty that it ends inside the distance, and it doesn't. So it's like we all have these moments where we're like, it is just we can see it now. I want to hesitate before going that far, in a spot like this. But I would be surprised if Dom Cruz is not able to dance around him in the early going, unless he gets old overnight and his speed is completely gone. I just think he's going to be the faster guy. I think he's going to be able to use his range and his length effectively, dance around the smaller guy, and look for opportunities to hit reactive shots. I've heard a lot of people talk about Pedro Munoz submitting Dominic Cruz this weekend. I don't think it's like a 0% chance, but I think it's a very negligible chance. Dominic Cruz been fighting a long effing time, and he has always shown great defensive responsibility, particularly in the wrestling, because that's what he does. So I think I would be very surprised to see Dominic Cruz get submitted this weekend unless he was already hurt badly on the feet. So that would be my only other aside there. I know that that's something that I've heard people discussing in the market. And while I understand, while I like Pedro Munoz as the scariest guillotine threat potentially in the division, he hasn't secured one in quite some time. And, he had basically club and subbed a few guys. It's not like Pedro is just defending takedowns into guillotines with regularity. I feel like he's got to hurt people normally to get that move going for him. But people respect it too. So if he starts reaching over your head, people will let go of the single leg. I will say that's the benefit of having a good guillotine is you can get respect without ever having to do the move. You just put your hand near their neck. Now it's two hands up. Let's get back to defense,
Well, that may have convinced me there. I do agree exactly with everything you said. I think Cruz is the spot to go. I like your decision prop. I was looking at it. I almost bet it myself, but I'll wait to see if that gets any wider. No, I bet on Aldo against Munoz, and I feel like I should do the same with Cruz here. Big fear would probably be just if DC got in his head at all. No, I'm just kidding. I think that this is a spot where he should win a decision, and for that reason, give me anything above plus 190, and I will snag it up immediately. I'm going to wait a bit. Might probably play it. I'll definitely have it in some Hail Marys, but nothing on it for me yet. All right, moving along, the last prelim of the entire night. Josh Emmett, 16-2, Dan Ige. And this is one I am hyped for, the return of Josh Emmett. If you remember me saying it earlier, parlay a piece, Sylvan Wright doesn't go to decision. This is it right here. Second leg of that parlay is Josh Emmett. Give me plus money all day. I love that bet. Yeah, I missed him. There was that 6 fights in a row. He's got a knockdown. Josh Emmett has power in his hands. Ige is a guy who I've bet against a lot, sometimes to my demise, as with Gavin Tucker, sometimes in a good way with the Korean Zombie, right? So I like Ige's heart. I like his will to win, but his skill set isn't always the best for me. I think that when it comes to skill, Emmett's back. Oh my God, he looks shredded on the scales. It's his fight to lose. I'm liking a lot of Emmett in every format, and I got to bet on him to win, and I'm excited to see how this one goes. How are you doing?
Yeah, so I also have a bet on Josh Emmett in this spot.
Let's go.
I don't feel great about it in the sense that it feels like everybody and their mother is on Josh Emmett this weekend from a picking standpoint. That being said, we all saw that the line moved pretty significantly. I think that if you got involved on the Dan Ige side when he was plus 180, I get where you're coming from. I understand that bet. I can't say I didn't think about it myself. That being said, I was a little bit tempted when I saw that Emmett line creep down to minus 150. Didn't think it was going to go any lower. I think, in fact, it's possible that he's going to close, in that minus 165, minus 175 range by fight time. And for that reason, I did get involved here for 1.5 units on the Josh Emmett side. But I will admit my fear here is that I'm getting sucked in to a narrative about a power puncher that is coming back off of surgery, and he's taking on another guy here in Dan Ige, who's historically been pretty tough to hurt. And when he does get hurt, has demonstrated pretty good toughness, resolve, and recoverability. And so that's the reason I didn't get to the window with an Emmett KO TKO line, because I do think that is a live possibility here. I think Dan Ige is hittable, and I think Josh Emmett is the kind of guy who could definitely punish you for that. I think in addition, what makes this fight tricky for Dan Ige is that I think his grappling upside is minimal here. When Josh Emmett is probably going to be able to prevent takedowns, sprawl and brawl, potentially find a couple takedowns of his own if he looks for them in transition. He's got a pretty good reactive double leg. He's a very strong physical guy, low center of gravity. I think all those factors could help him. Dan Ige been taken down by a number of opponents, been hurt to the body, I noticed, in a couple of his fights as well. Kind of got that long torso, thinner guy in this featherweight division. Josh Emmett, big, thick boy, can take damage and roll with it pretty well. So I think that Josh Emmett is the side here. But with that being said, I don't blame anybody who got in on the plus money early on Dan Ige. Just think that this is the time to buy back a little bit on that line before it eventually creeps its way back out. At least that's how I see it going.
Completely agree. I just think it's a fight I'm really looking forward to. We haven't seen him in a while, and he was on absolute fire. So I'm liking him here. I'm excited to see what's going on. I do agree with the Ige buyback, but you got to buy low. And when Emmett got as low as he did, I don't know the exact numbers, but let me look him up here. Yeah, Emmett's minus 150 some spots now, right? Like he opened up. He was near the minus 200s. He hit minus 220, and now he's minus 150. And I completely agree with being on the Emmett side here. It's what happens is you got to play the market, right? So I love Emmett in the spot. I got plus money on a bet with him, parlayed up with the Silva, and Wright doesn't go to decision. And I'm super confident. And I love that bet right there. And I hope Emmett gets it done. Like Chance mentioned in the video, maybe a couple of knockdowns, maybe a good DraftKings score. But you guys have been pretty tough, so I won't put anything too concrete on that. But I'm liking what I got. All right, next up, and we are on the main card now. We got Sugar Show Sean O'Malley 14-1, or if you ask him, I think what is he 14-0 according to his TikTok or whatever he does, versus Rilian Paiva 21-3. Okay, Sugar Sean O'Malley is the darling of Dana White. He's a big personality, and everyone likes to always bet him at his minus 400 prices. I'm guilty of that. Is that my Alexa? Oh well. This is a spot where Oh wow! All right, this is a spot where Sugar Show is a favorite, and I'm debating playing him here against Rilian Paiva. Rilian Paiva is a guy with heart, but everyone's taken away that he had lots of heart and fought through that resiliency against Kyler Phillips. I see it as if Kyler Phillips was able to withhold and pace himself a bit more, Paiva was done. Kyler Phillips put on an absolute clinic in round one there. Do I think Sean O'Malley's going to do that exactly? No, but Sean O'Malley's the guy who's able to go for all 3 rounds. Insane output, insane striking accuracy. And he's really good at what he does. He puts people down, and that's without fail. I mean, he's faced lesser competition, but he's good at what he does. So I think Sean O'Malley runs right through Rilian Paiva. It's tough for me to say because I know Rilian Paiva got heart and probably some tools if he wants to win. And I don't think Sean O'Malley is going to do well against the top 10 in the division. I just think it's another setup spot for him. Sean O'Malley is a guy who takes all the fights he wants to win. Like he said, only guy not with a ranked who's a millionaire, whatever the quote is. But he's a smart guy who knows who he can beat. And I think that Rilian Paiva is a guy who can really beat in this spot.
And I know that I'm not going to be, the MMA community's favorite darling for the pick, but I'm going to go with Rilian Paiva in this spot. And a lot of people on O'Malley, a lot of people big exposure on O'Malley. So wishing everybody the best of luck. I have a small bet here on Rilian Paiva, but let me run you through really quick from a purely logical betting rationale why I think Rilian Paiva can make some sense here before you even get into the stylistics, the matchup, anything like that. So let me start you off in February of 2019, Kai Kara France versus Rilian Paiva. It is his UFC debut. Believe it's on short notice. Rilian Paiva is a plus 231 underdog, loses a split decision to Kai Kara France, who's going to be on the main card here on Saturday night. And in that fight, I thought that he won the fight. Full disclosure, I thought he won the fight. I thought he landed more effectively. He hurt Kai Kara France so badly with leg kicks in that fight that Kai Kara France was a wrestler. And Kai Kara France is now shooting takedowns every chance he gets, trying to take down Rilian Paiva, who was winning a lot of the scrambles and who was preventing him from having much success in that realm. Kai Kara France was able to answer with some of the counter boxing reluctantly, but he wanted to take the fight to the ground because his leg was really bothered. Then we move forward, right? Now we have Rilian Paiva taking on Rogerio Bontorin. Rogerio Bontorin, still relevant in the division, right? Just got dispatched by Kai Kara France in a fight where he looked dominant, absolutely dominant, right? Also has other wins in the division, does Rogerio Bontorin. On top of that, Rilian Paiva was messing him up, landing good shots, had busted open his face, and then he gets his face busted open. Doctor comes in, calls it quits, right? So Rilian Paiva is pissed. Didn't want the fight to be stopped. He was a pick'em price in that fight. Looked like he was $1 million through the first 2.5 minutes, then gets hit with a shot himself. So the doctor came in twice. Like the doctor first interrupted his momentum when he's whipping the guy's ass. Then the guy gets one shot in on him and then the fight's over. So I don't think we learned anything about his capabilities there, except that he can bust up somebody's face and that he's not going to quit on himself, even if his eye gets messed up, even if he gets hurt, even if something's going wrong, which I was like, okay, I like that. Then we see he was a minus 227 favorite, knocks out Mark De La Rosa in the second round. He was a minus 167 favorite against Zhalgas Zhumagulov, who Zhalgas fought the fight of his life, like a career best performance from Zhalgas. Still wasn't enough to beat Raulian Paiva. He gets past him, right? Judges like what he's doing optically. Then he goes out there against Kyler Phillips. And if we didn't need one more example of Raulian Paiva being something that the judges are interested in, the guy goes out there and gets the clean win majority. I think it was majority, or was it split? Split decision victory over Kyler Phillips. And Kyler Phillips could have gotten a 10-8 round in the first, but the reason he didn't, in all likelihood, is because Raulian Paiva, despite being dropped, was able to get a minute of control on top, was able to land hard shots of his own that convinced the judges it was not a one-sided ass whooping. It was back and forth. And so despite the fact that he almost face planted twice, the guy still competes optically in the round. Then he comes out and buries Kyler Phillips. By the way, Kyler Phillips was showing signs that he was going to break mentally in that fight at the 4-minute mark of round one, because he's like, what the hell do I have to hit this guy with, a kitchen sink? He's realizing I'm not going to be able to put him away. I'm going to have to fight him for 15 minutes. And are we putting it past Sean O'Malley to have that same reaction? He's never looked thrilled about it before, right? And in the Chris Moutinho fight, I've talked about this before. I thought Chris Moutinho did an excellent job of being tough, of being willing, of being game, of being durable, of coming forward, and he did nothing else effective. He threw a handful of leg kicks. He really didn't get off significant effective offense. He just followed him around in a punching bag-esque fashion. In this fight, Raulian Paiva, you could say, oh, he's a punching bag, dude. He doesn't move his head. He doesn't. You're absolutely spot on the money. He keeps his head on the center line because he is trying to answer back with a hard combination as you throw. And he doesn't give a shit about what you hit him with on the way in. That's not a way you'd advise your children to fight. That's not a way you would maybe pick for yourself to fight. But this is a guy who sacrificed everything in his life for a hope and a dream to make this a reality, right? And so he's willing to get hit in the face to land something bigger and scarier on you because he trusts his toughness. Guys, that's a hard guy to bet against at plus 275. I'm just telling you this. The smartest guy in the room, many would say, right? And I say this based on his track record. Just win, baby. Number one all time on BetMMA.tips. Tweeted out earlier this week. Do not bet Sean O'Malley this weekend. It is Paiva or pass. I will just share that last week he tweeted the same thing about William Knight and Alonzo Menafield. Take that for what it's worth.
Fair, and I respect your shot, and I know that Whisper was on him as well in the video. For value, sure, I get that. Sean O'Malley's a guy who, once he faces that top 15, I'll be the first one to fade.
This is
his
top
legs
15.
Like give it. Sorry,
Paiva got his spot jacked. What the fuck is this division, dude? Paiva literally wins the fight, and they're like, all right, now it's not a ranked fight anymore. It's like, wait, Kyler Phillips just had the ranking. What happened?
Yes. Okay, sorry. Maybe top 10 then. A guy where we've seen them have a lot of success, and Paiva just looks like a setup almost, just because Dana White was probably like, okay, Kyler Phillips was able to run through him in the first 4 minutes. Maybe my precious little poodled-haired boy Sean O'Malley can do the same thing, right?
But was he though? He ran through him in the first 4 minutes and didn't get a 10-8 round on 3 judges' scorecards. He literally tried to throw everything that he knew. Like, he tried every strike that he could do. And Raulian Paiva was like, fuck you, dude. What do you got for me? He Homer Simpsoned him, dude. And I think that he is a live Homer Simpson every time out. The guy will walk forward, eat something hard on the chin, and go, fuck that, and throw something crazy. Like, he also has a kicking game. So I don't think he's just going to stand on the outside and get picked apart with punches like a lot of these O'Malley victims. I think this is a guy who's going to kick to the head, the legs, and the body at decent volume. I think he can try and fight with him at kicking range.
What would you line Phillips versus O'Malley?
That's an interesting question.
'Cause
Wow, dude, you've caught me off guard with that. I don't know. Kyler Phillips, I think, is kind of a hard guy to get a cap on. Both of those guys have a little bit of cardio questions. I think Sean actually has the more consistent output. But I don't know that he's as explosive or as dangerous as Kyler Phillips. And I think that's the other conflation that people are making. Kyler Phillips is a dynamic ball of energy and a ball of muscle. Does Sean O'Malley look like that? No, he's a little
nope.
bit different. He's a guy who will touch, 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 touch. He's a Diaz brother in that sense.
And
And so I think
to
a late
your
finish for O'Malley makes more sense than like first round, like a lot of people think.
to your advantage too, Sean O'Malley likes to have his range. He likes to be the bigger fighter, and Piva looked pretty big. I'll tell you that. I did see that. So I'm on O'Malley with no tracked action. I have no bets. I might get there. Who knows? I see DFS Whisperer mention it right here. Love the sugar show, business of making money. Piva looks like money, and I'm telling you, man, I see it. I see it. I just can't get there. I there's something looming in the back of my mind that's like, no one wants Sugar Sean O'Malley to win more than Dana White and Sean Shelby, and everyone put these fights together. And I just think this is a spot where Sean O'Malley is expected to go out there against someone who's supposed to give him resistance, just the same way that Rillian Pai was able to give Phillips resistance. I just don't see it going the same way. And maybe I'm looking too much into that past fight, but Sean O'Malley's a guy who's, despite his flaws that we're going to fade him in the future for, he's a very, very accurate guy. There's no questioning that. He's a very accurate striker. I think he wins the minutes. I wouldn't bet him into the distance. I think he wins the minutes if he has to, and I think he all around wins the fight. But there you go. Phillips to be the. I don't think that. I would disagree with that one.
To be clear, I favor O'Malley at like a minus
Yeah.
150, minus 175 clip. I just think that the price is a little bit bonkers.
Yeah, I get that. All right, well, good. Best luck to you. And if I don't get to the window on O'Malley, in all means, I will be cheering for Rillian Paiva for you. We'll just see where I end up with. All right, let's move right along to the main cards. It was a main card. What am I talking about? Let's move it along in the main card. Speaking of Kai Kara France, here he is, 22-9 versus Cody Garbrandt, 12-4. Let me just say, along with everybody else, I just want to see how Cody Garbrandt looked at this weight class. So I just want to see what he looked like. He looked good from what I saw. Like I said, I didn't get to watch it, but I got to see clips. Had a good enough reaction speed to catch his mask. Looked huge. And that's all I needed. I placed my bet. I got minus 138, placed my unit and a half, and that's all I'm getting out of there with. I tried to fade Kai Kara France in the past. I bet Royval. I bet Bontarine. Don't have to remind me about that faceplant knockout. I think that this is Cody Garbrandt's fight to lose. He was a champ at 135. Who says he can't do well against a guy in Kai Kara France at 125? Has the skills to do it. I get the love for Kai Kara France at big plus money. But when you're giving me minus 135, minus 138, I think it's Cody Garbrandt all day. Thoughts on it?
I think that this is a fight that is hard to get a good read on. In terms of the plays that I have on this fight pre-fight, right now I'm sitting on a Kai Kara France KO TKO at plus 360 ticket because I thought that was probably going to be a good quarter unit poke. Given the questions on the chin, the durability of Garbrandt, particularly at a new weight class, Kai Kara France has historically shown an ability to knock people out. Hadn't shown it very much in the UFC, but I actually think it had more to do with circumstances than like a just drop off in his punching power. He dropped Brandon Royval to a knee. The problem was nobody remembers it because he gets spinning back elbowed like 10 seconds later. So he like did just fine in that fight and got overexcited, thought it was over, and Greg Hardy'd himself, But I do think that broadly speaking, Kai Kara France, not a bad fighter, not an exceptionally great fighter. He's got decent punching mechanics, can throw a decent low kick, doesn't throw a tremendous amount of variety in his strikes outside of that, but he is pretty decent at picking combinations, placing them together, moving in and out of range. I think that on the other side, Cody Garbrandt, a little bit low volume, a little bit low activity, doesn't always take the initiative in his fights, which is a concern for me. That being said, does have the more power in the matchup, probably a little bit more dynamic. If he's able to keep his power from the weight class above, that will be a big factor here. I think that the speed is going to be relatively equal, but Garbrandt does have pretty fast hands, man. And I think that people are sleeping on the ability of Cody's hand speed to translate down a weight class. Not a lock, but think it is at least interesting to see how he looks. Cody seems like he did it the right way. Hired the nutritionist, hired the doctor, did it several months in advance. And you can tell when somebody doesn't look good on the scale and when they look like they're pretty comfortable. He's out there laughing, joking, talking, smiling. He's not going every 3 seconds and, whatever. Like, he doesn't look like he's been, deprived water and out in a desert somewhere. Looked like he did things the right way. And Cody's still a young guy, so I don't want to write off his chances forever. I almost spoke out of turn earlier this week and said that Kai Kara-France might be able to mix in the wrestling. Somebody reminded me that Cody Garbrandt's an Ohio State champion, and I had to back that up and just say that there's no Ohio State champion getting out wrestled by a Kiwi. With all due respect, God bless you, but them Ohio boys know how to get down. And I think that Cody Garbrandt, I'd be interested to see if he can get some control style grappling going down a weight class. He's had very little success at 135 doing so, but he didn't cut a lot of weight. And it's very hard to wrestle some of these big dudes. Rob Font probably walks into that fight 160 plus pounds. He looks like a huge guy. And Cody probably 145, 150, 155 at the most. So I think that, this is a much more suitable weight class for Cody if the weight cut doesn't change his physiology, in major ways. Like, I think that Cody can be more effective as a flyweight, but I don't know if he's going to be able to match that pace. Because he does kind of like come in and out of matching pace in his fights. And I think ultimately it's the fear of fatigue and attritional damage adding up that forces Cody to go berserker sometimes. And if that happens in this fight, that's when I think my plus 360 ticket's going to look good as gravy. But I think it's also very possible that Cody fights a smart, disciplined approach, gets some late takedowns to win rounds here, fights it the right way, and ends up getting a clean, unanimous decision victory. So I think my ultimate prediction is going to be Cody Garbrandt to win the fight by decision. But I think either one of these guys is live to find a knockout. I think that it's not the highest percentage chance for either one of them in all likelihood. This is a flyweight fight. I think that it's very likely that this could go the distance as well. I just don't want to write off either guy's chance to get a knockout in the spot, because I do think both of them possess some power and some good shot selection and, a willingness to stay in the pocket and counter. And so I think we could see some interesting, fun punching exchanges that end with either one of these guys snoring. But I also could see, a pretty fun back and forth affair here in the flyweight division. And Kai Kara-France maybe taking over as the fight goes on if we don't see the same kind of cardio reserves from Cody down a weight class.
Well, all I had to see from me is Cody Garbrandt going to be able to look good cutting that much weight? And he did. That's what I needed. I took my shot. I like it. I'm happy with my bet. But I get it. Kai Kara-France is a guy who I've underestimated a lot, and he's proved me wrong. And he definitely has a good chance to win this fight. I think this is Cody Garbrandt's time, right?
He's got like twice the pro experience, man. That's the one thing that stood out to me in the matchup. I was like, holy shit. Kai Kara-France has been very active in his career.
I don't think his level of competition was still the best, though. Yes, he's fought some good guys, but Cody Garbrandt was the champ and fought the best of the best, right? So,
well, dude, in the UFC, he fought Raulian Paiva, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval, Rogerio Bontorin. No cakewalk in those fights. And
no,
I think the Tyson Nam fight was a bit of a gimme. The De La Rosa fight, a bit of a gimme. The Elias Garcia fight, maybe a bit of a gimme. But I think that he's also had, those series of real fights as well. And he hasn't won them all. But I think that will be valuable experience for him moving forward as well. You can only get the fights that you can get. And it took him a while to get to the UFC, had to get some real credible experience under his belt. And now he's in the top 10 in the world. And I do think it's sometimes these guys have an idea of I'm going to come down, I'm going to be the new big dog in the division. And they start in the middle of the pack. And, you could just be putting yourself, really out of the deep end of the pool with these guys. Kai Kara-France isn't necessarily a soft landing at bantamweight, but I do think that Cody's the side based on the things we know about these guys. If all the things that we can assume based on tape are true, that all that. But there's a lot of unknowns in this fight. And that, for me, ultimately pushes the line just a little bit closer and closer to 50-50. So that's why I thought that the, plus 170, plus 160 and whatever on Kai Kara just wasn't going to last, because there's a lot of uncertainty here.
Well, while you were talking there, I may have checked my phone a little bit, so sorry about the little bit of disrespect, but I had to see if the ceremonial weigh-ins were going on, and they are. Kai Kara-France is out there doing that in front of Cody Garbrandt's face, and Cody Garbrandt looks pretty big compared to him, so that weight cut's looking very good on him. I think it's his time. Other things to note, too, Muniz looks a lot bigger than Anders, which was surprising. Maybe I just got the picture of Anders or Stewart in my mind stuck, but Muniz does look big. And Paiva looks a lot bigger than I expected him to. So 3 guys I'll have to keep my eye on, but definitely a spot where I like Garbrandt even more. All right, moving right along. We got 3 fights left before. No, there's 3 fights in general. And this is a big one to talk about. Jeff Neal, DUI Neal, 13-4 versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, 28-4. Now, sure, I made a little bit of a joke there, but Jeff Neal was arrested earlier this week. Last week, which is never something good, never something to ride home about. But I saw that and I bet on Santiago Ponzinibbio, right? Just out of, you have a guy getting arrested, you don't know what this training is like. I bet on Santiago Ponzinibbio. I did that before doing tape, which I never like to do. With tape done, though, I'm very happy with my spot still. I got even money on it, so take it that way you will. I think you said the line was flipping earlier. I don't know what it is now. I know it was like minus 125 for Ponzinibbio earlier. Anyways, moral of the story is you have a guy who just bricks for hands in Jeff Neal. Versus a guy who's pretty elusive, good volume in Santiago Ponzinibbio. And I just think this is one where it's going to be a decision win for Ponzinibbio. I think he outworks him over the stretch. I think not Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, because he's not Thompson, but I think he's able to move around, get volume on, just put a bunch of leather to his face and win the minutes. I don't think Jeff Neal's a minute winner. He's a guy who likes to put people out with his hands of steel, and I just don't think he's able to do that here. Sure, it's live. I think if you want to bet Jeff Neal, you bet him by finish. You hope he does exactly what Chimaev's child, the Leech, does, and you can take that option there, but I think this is Ponzinibbio's fight to lose, and I'm happy with my spot. I know you're on the same side as me, but what are your thoughts after seeing the weigh-ins?
I think both guys looked really good at the weigh-in, but I do think Jeff Neal looks like the bigger guy. That's a little bit of a concern for me, man. If I'm honest with you, just felt gross about my bet. I put in 1.2 units on Pons at minus 120. Looks like I'm not going to get any closing line value. I was sitting in a good position all week as it was sitting at minus 124 on the pawn side for the most part. And then, we see late action comes in on Jeff Neal. And I think it's because of the visuals that we saw on the scale. I think it's because, people are realizing, oh, Jeff had a pretty reasonable explanation for the DUI. He's like, yeah, I was out on Thanksgiving with my girlfriend and whatever. And, so then we were in a place, didn't want to be there, was driving. It was a mistake, had a legal firearm because of the whole jam I got myself in. Now the firearm's a crime. It's all just a wash, right? So I think people are buying the Jeff Neal explanation. And I think in addition, I think they look at this and say, hey, you got a big explosive southpaw with a reach advantage, and he's not favored against an older guy who's been wobbled in his last couple of fights, who's been knocked out by the Leech, who just got, ragdolled by Chimaev. You start painting these narratives in your head, right? I think overall, like the way that I view this matchup, I think that Jeff Neal is the power striker. I think that he is more likely than Pons to get the knockout. I think, like you mentioned, if this fight goes to the distance, I think Pons is more likely to win than Jeff Neal. He's savvy. He's smart. He's a good vet. In the same way as Neil Magny. Doesn't fight the same kind of style. He's a little more reckless. He's a little bit more of a brawler. He's a little bit more in your face. But Pons fights the fight he needs to fight at the time. When he was getting hurt by Baeza, he came up with other answers. He started answering back with the calf kicks. He started answering back with his own punching combinations as opposed to just throwing the jab and getting it countered. I think that as long as he doesn't fall in love with the jab as the only weapon in this fight, he can have success against Jeff Neal, who tends to throw a little bit lower in volume. That being said, I think Neal is live to steal a round or two here with big, powerful shots. He's the kind of guy who could put dangerous optics on you. And I do think it's live. He finishes Santiago here. He's 35. This is the welterweight division. He's been finished before. He's kind of on the precipice. But what I will also say is, when you look at this guy, Santiago Ponzinibbio, he is a savage. Like, he is a absolute marauder. I don't think he will ever quit on himself in a fight. He's the kind of guy, you got to kill him to get him out of there. You got to knock him out cold and have him not remembering what's going on, or he's going to stay in your face and try and get you back. I think he'll fight dirty. He'll literally do whatever it takes. So that's why I kind of like to back somebody like Pons, all things considered, more often than not. And Jeff Neal's been a guy I faded. I got a big plus money ticket for what's his name? I think Neil Magny was an underdog, right? Or am I crazy about this? I think Neil Magny was the underdog. And then I know for sure I played Stephen Thompson at evens for like 4 units against him because I was very confident that Wonder Boy was going to dance around Jeff Neal. And so I think at his best, Ponzinibbio kind of dances around Jeff Neal, keeps him at the end of the jab, works a little bit behind the jab in the combinations, touches him with the calf kicks when Neal tries to commit. But I do have these scary visions in my head of Jeff Neal getting touched up. It's the second round. He hasn't landed anything of conviction. He throws a big left high kick, and then we're all done. So that's my real concern here with a Ponzinibbio bet, is that it all comes crumbling down at one point, even if the fight's going well. But I think, I'm already in. I'm not going to cash the bet out. I'm going to ride with it. It's already on my track record. Let's see how it rolls. I think Pons has a chance to win. I just think I made probably a negative EV bet long-term, backing him at -120 here.
Fair. I completely see what you're saying there. I really like Ponzinibbio, and especially pre-tape. It was kind of solidified after, but watching Jeff Neal get all those knockouts and having those hands of steel, some of that scared me a little bit. In the other day, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to roll with it. I'm happy with what I got. I think he's elusive. I think he's able to out-volume on. But I'll be holding my breath every time those hands of steels are swung around the ring. All right, we got 2 fights left. We got the co-main and the main. Shout out to Frank in the chat. Love you guys. We love you too, Frank. Thank you for being here. All right. I see someone in the chat. Yeah, I see someone joining us in just in the right amount of time. Please welcome into the live stream, Mr. ChanceWagers. We're 2 fights left. Chance, how we doing, brother?
What's going on? Glad I could finally make it for at least the last 2. So,
yeah, well, we're happy to hear you guys. If you want to hear any more of his output on the input on the other fights, he was happy enough to, I was happy enough to have him join me in the DFS video. Check that out after you guys are done listening to this one. But let's get her going here. 2 fights left. We have the co-main and the main. We got Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. And every time Amanda Nunes is fighting, that is something you guys got to look out for. I do, not a common thing, but I have a 5-unit bet that I've had going for a long time, where I just parlayed my 3 favorite fighters to win, Chimaev, Holloway, and Nunes, and it's going to round off with Mrs. Amanda Nunes. So I got plus money going in this one, but Amanda Nunes 21-4 versus Juliana Pena 10-4. And before I kick it over to you guys, let me just say, this is a spot where you got guys who, okay, there's a little bit of tension there. Nunes is expected to roll, and Pena is expected to, as always, you have to talk up the competitor against Nunes, but I'm going to keep it short. I think Nunes rolls right through her. Pena's just like everybody else in the division, a step below Nunes. What do you think about this one, Liam?
Yeah, man, the way that I break this down is pretty simple and straightforward. I think Amanda Nunes is better everywhere. I think that Juliana Pena, her win condition in this fight is, getting Amanda Nunes gassed, working her over in the clinch, pressing her into the fence, trying to find takedowns, trying to find any way at all to gas this girl out. Because I think fresh, Amanda fucks her up. Amanda's dangerous with her hands. She can beat up men, like straight up. Heard it from personal live account. She can beat up men. And on top of that, she has a pretty nasty submission game in her own right. Pretty sure she's got a black belt tattooed on her arm. This girl is not a slouch at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When she hurts somebody, she doesn't, get married to the strikes as her only way to finish. She will take the back. She will take a choke. She will take, she is not opposed to taking the submission finish. And I think it was even a triangle choke, like a triangle choke from the back or something like it was like a pretty high level maneuver last time out to defeat Megan Anderson. So last time out, I cashed plus 450 Nunes sub round 1. This time they're giving me Nunes sub at plus 420, guys. It's almost the same price. I don't have to wet it to a round. And this is a girl in Juliana Pena who, despite her grappling, as like her primary mode of attack, this is where she gets submitted. This is where she makes mistakes. This is where she gets finished. And I think that Amanda Nunes can make her pay. I think that Amanda Nunes will have been very particular in her preparation for this camp. I think she wants to make a statement in this fight. I think a lot of people have misinterpreted her being pissed at Juliana as her wanting to go out there and punch her in the face and beat her up. Maybe, that's very possible. But I think what's more likely is she's going to want to embarrass her, right? She's going to want to say, not only are you never going to be the champion, you're not even going to sniff me at what you think you do good. And so it builds her legacy. It builds her persona and her image more so, in my opinion. Everybody knows that she can knock out Juliana Pena, right? Juliana Pena is a plus 650 underdog. Like, she can definitely knock out Juliana Pena. But can she submit this girl too? I think she can. I think she's the better grappler, and I think she'll want to show it as well. I think that Juliana Pena will put her head in the hole for guillotines. I think that she will put herself in bad positions, overextending on takedown attempts. And I see Amanda Nunes finding an opportunity to finish here on the ground. I could see it being a positional TKO due to ground and pound strikes if Pena starts to, wilt under the pressure of Amanda. But I could also see Amanda latching on a submission hold and finding, whether it's a choke that puts her to sleep or a braking mechanism, that would be pretty good for the ego burst of of her opponent. So I think Amanda Nunes is going to come out here and make a statement. I think she wins. I think she wins inside the distance. I like the under 4.5. I like the under 3.5. I like Amanda to win the fight by submission in probably one of those first 3 rounds. And I have a small play as well on Amanda's sub round 3, just because I had a weird vision in my head of how this one would play out. And I do think Juliana Pena, if she commits to her grappling forward game plan, eventually gets herself submitted.
Fair. I respect the play. And while I am super huge on Nunes, it's a fight game, right? So everyone has their small chances to win. I'm not going to be completely disrespectful and say Pena has no chance. Sure, that grappling, is there. She is a scrappy girl, but it is Amanda Nunes after all. I completely like your submission thing. The way everything's been going on, the trash talk, the way they've been talking this week. I love it. And I might join you on that one. But for now, I got my 5 big boy units on it. I only use a 1 to 5 scale. So this is a pretty big bet for me. And I'm happy with what I got. Chance, what do you got in this co-main event?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with a lot of what Liam said. I do think Nunes probably rolls early. But I also don't think Nunes is she's been dominant based off her strength and her physicality and stuff like that. But and she's great for women's MMA, of course. But I don't know. I mean, there may be cardio issues there. We just haven't really seen it come to fruition very often. So, I mean, if Pena survives, maybe Pena late, round 4, round 5 is a decent poke. I don't know. You don't really want to bet that, and then in hindsight, Nunes just kills her like she should round 1, and then you just look stupid, So that's not really something. I'm not gonna die on this hill, but yeah, Nunes should roll. But I mean, late, I probably favor Pena slightly in round 4, round 5, if she gets there. Yeah, and this fight just had weird stuff surrounding it. I don't know how hard Nunes is training at this point. She seems kind of done with the whole fighting thing. She seems to be getting towards the end of her career. Now, I don't think she's bad or she's getting worse. I just think we're getting towards the end of that line. So, I mean, if you can get plus 4,000 to plus 6,000, I think it evens 5 dimes. Pena round 4 if it gets there. Maybe she's got a shot if she survived. But I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, yeah, Nunez probably rolls, to be honest.
Fair, I get what you're saying here. And Frank is saying in the chat, too, the only one who has a chance is Kayla Harrison. And whereas I do see that there, everyone's talking about that this week. Dana White's mentioned it, looking past Julian Pena, which is be lighting fire somewhere. But I do agree. I don't think that Pena has the best chance. Unfortunately, sorry, I do say that, but maybe it's just me having being a bit anxious over my big bet. But you had a vision of that round 3 sub. I had a vision for some reason of Pena keeping it close to a decision. Until all the trash talk this week, I was very heavily debating betting the over 3.5 at big plus money, just in case Pena wants to be that scrappy girl who stays in the fight. But I'm going to stay off of it. I hope Nunez's roll early. I'm going to have a lot of her in DraftKings, and for that reason, I am going to stay off of it. And
Dude,
with DraftKings in mind, guys. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I will say, I think Kayla Harrison beats her, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Put that out there. Yeah. There's an early prediction. If that fight ever happens, I'll have a pretty solid size wager on Kayla Harrison for sure.
Yeah, that one's a tough one for me because we haven't really seen Kayla Harrison tested too much, right? So, well, I'll talk about that one when it happens. But for now, on the path of DraftKings, guys, if you guys want a free chance of winning $25, make sure to comment your DraftKings username under the video that I was happy enough to have Chance and Liam join me on. So after you're done watching the stream, check out the other video on the Plays and Fades channel there. All right, that leaves us with one last fight, guys. We have the main event of the night, and I am really, really looking forward to this one. It's the big one. We have Charles Oliveira holding the belt and defending it for the first time. He is 31-8 versus Dustin Poirier, 28-6. This is the longest what was the stat? Longest that 2 fighters ever taken to get to a UFC title fight against each other. Most UFC experience between them. And hey, it's going to be a good one. I know you guys both have your respective takes, so I'm actually going to throw it over to Chance. What do you got on this one?
So yeah, I'm on Charles pretty big here, to be honest with you.
Oh wow.
I got in around plus 145-ish, I think. I have to go back and look. I'm on my phone right now, but I got in around plus 145. I think Poirier is decent. I think he's really good, honestly. I have a lot of friends that love him. I've never really been a huge fan. I think he's like, dude, we just seen Charles get so much better like over the past couple of years. And I think the narrative of him being a quitter is still like somewhat live if it gets late. But I think that's more of a cardio issue possibly. But I don't know. I mean, we just seen Charles get better and better. And the form he's in right now is just like unreal. So I think on the feet, he can touch up Poirier. I mean, every time Poirier goes out there, he gets touched. Like, I mean, Conor even hit him in the, short while that fight lasted, was able to touch him. And I think Charles, the low kick should be there if he chooses to. Charles' hands have gotten a ton better. And I've also seen DP, put himself in some pretty bad spots grappling-wise. So, yeah. And, I mean, also, like, Charles' wrestling has looked better, too, lately. He's gone out there and had some solid-looking, like, takedowns, some double legs and stuff like that. So, yeah, dude, I really I honestly favor Charles here, to be honest with you. I will say this is max bet territory for me, to be honest. I like him quite a bit. I like him inside the distance. Yeah, I'm pretty big on him here, to be honest. I could go like super in depth, but that's pretty much my simple thoughts there.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. Liam, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what Chance said here. I haven't quite gotten to max bet territory here, but I did consider it. I really like Charles in this spot. I'm a pretty conservative bettor. I don't often max bet, so that's really what has kept me off it thus far. But what I would also say is this. I think that Charles Oliveira has plus level finishing in the striking department, and I think he's got plus level finishing in the grappling department. If you look back, I wrote an article for Roto Grinders. It'll probably be published tomorrow, breaking down this fight in pretty good detail from a betting perspective. But you look at this man, Charles Oliveira, and what stands out to you immediately is like the guy is just critically undervalued by the market, right? And Dustin Poirier, the same could be true, but not anymore, right? Like you could have said the exact same thing about Dustin a year ago. that the market was undervaluing him. And historically, statistically, that's true. But of late, what happened? Dustin became a bigger star. Dustin became a much more publicly known commodity, right? And he did so in like beautiful fashion, glowing fashion. Everything's going gravy for him, right? So I think the public is very high on Dustin in this spot. I think that everybody's believing this is his time, this is his moment. There's a lot of narrative baked into that. Uncrowned champ. People have been saying for months, Dustin's the real champ, Charles isn't. So I think that that's a lot of the psychological play on this fight. I think when you look at it from an X's and O's perspective, outside of the cardio, like Chance mentioned, and a little bit of the striking vulnerability of Charles, everything points towards Charles being just slightly better equipped to win this fight, in my opinion. Number one, when you look at the wrestling and the grappling, it should favor Charles outright. Dustin's been taken down by primary strikers, throughout the course of his career, including as recently as Dan Hooker, right? 4 takedowns, several minutes, like 6+ minutes, I think it was, of control time against a primary kickboxer from New Zealand. That, for me, is a little bit of a concern. Instead, we're looking now at Charles Oliveira, a guy who has out-wrestled Division I credentialed wrestlers, and not just one, by the way, many of them in the UFC. He's fought more grapplers than Dustin Poirier. He has out-grappled grapplers a lot of the time. Then you look at Dustin Poirier, he just hasn't fought all that many primary grapplers. And when he does, it looks ugly a lot of the time. And I think that Chance also brought up a great point. Who is the more active leg kicker here? I know people have an impression of how good a leg kicker Dustin Poirier is from the Conor McGregor fights for good reason. That being said, Dustin Poirier does not throw leg kicks quite as frequently as Charles Oliveira does. Charles throws good, snappy low kicks, and he's got more range. He's taller. He's a little bit longer. I think that Charles is going to be able to find his shots from the outside here. I think he's going to be able to do some good work at kicking range. I think when they're in the pocket, Charles is going to try and clinch him, get a hold of him, bring him close, and take him to the ground. I think his upper body takedown game is pretty damn strong. And I think that Charles, in the early going, has very, very clever back takes, front headlock series, leg entanglements. If you get on top of him, you're not safe, you're not comfortable, and you're not relaxing. Michael Chandler damn near had a heart attack because he was in grappling transitions with this guy. Like, I don't think that we see Chandler gas so bad if he didn't stay in the guard for so long. Being in that guard is nerve-wracking. It's terrifying. Unless you're Paul Felder, 5 years ago, dropping elbows like a Irish madman, going, ha, 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 and just like not giving a shit about the fact that Charles put you in 50 tight chokes. If you're not that guy, he's going to fuck you up. This guy is really dangerous. Cashed at crazy plus odds for the KO in several of his recent fights, right? Made people think Jared Gordon has no chin. Made people like this guy has actually done a lot of credible work, as far as I'm concerned, in the UFC on this recent win streak, shown that he can overcome adversity. And I beat the closing line here. If everything stands at current market conditions, I've got plus 140, plus 145 on Charles Oliveira on the money line. I've got plus 210 on Charles Oliveira to win inside the distance. I've got shares of the under 4.5, the under 3.5. The fight doesn't go the distance. And I think all of those are pretty good looks for this fight. I think that both these guys are game. Both these guys are finishers. Both these guys are winners. But I think Dustin Poirier has had some matchups that have made him look good lately. I think that the people have great confidence in him as a result. I think Charles Oliveira is a tough stylistic matchup. And I think the last time we saw him in a stylistic matchup of this nature, he broke mentally. He broke mentally early. And the signs were on the wall that he was going to lose the fight and lose it inside the distance in the very first round. And I think that, the live market might reflect that. If Charles is getting easy takedowns, if he's on the back, if Dustin is starting to show signs of panic, signs of, discontent, signs that he wants to rush back to his feet. He acknowledged last time that he rushed back to his feet against Khabib and it cost him the fight. He said, I should have just given up the round. I think that if you have that kind of mindset with Charles Oliveira, it could also be a 5-round lay and pray for Charles. And I know that people think that's a little crazy. And I'm the first guy banging the horn that this is going to be a fight that ends inside the distance. But I think the only thing that gave me pause on that is what I heard Poirier say in the interviews about not rushing and making sure you stay conservative in the grappling, because that could be a recipe for getting control grappled to death by Charles Oliveira. And if you don't think so, ask Tony Ferguson. He got completely worked over in the grappling. It was never competitive at all. And Charles didn't break a sweat hardly. So I think that if Charles isn't facing a tremendous amount of resistance, if you make it a ground fight, the guy can go all day. I think the difference is if he puts you through the submission series over and over and you're not getting out of there, if he can't find a finish, if he gets on top and you're still finding ways back up to your feet and then finding ways to take him down and you're not afraid of the ground game, that's how you beat this guy. I just don't know that Dustin's going to have all the tools that he needs on the night. It's very possible he does. He's an absolute savage. But for me, laying chalk on this fight is not the move. I would not be laying the chalk price on Dustin Poirier, given what I know about him in the grappling realm so far. And, you know, I think I forget who it was that tweeted it. I want to give him full credit, but you could find it on Dan Tom's Twitter account, I believe. He retweeted it, I think, in my feed. And it was saying that Dustin Poirier is like in the top 3 all time in terms of submission attempts allowed per time spent on the ground. And I think that that's just a recipe for disaster against a proven finisher like Charles Oliveira. So, guys, I've got to get rocking and rolling. I got to go strangle some people, got to get my inner Charles Oliveira going. But I appreciate the opportunity once again, Gordo, to come on, shoot the breeze about these fights with everybody, drop a little knowledge as best we can, you know, go through these fights, dig through the data with you guys. And it's always all of us good guys versus the bookies each and every week, as far as I'm concerned, and trying to find some good spots, some good things that I wanted to bet on this week. But whether you're playing my spots, whether you're going against them, I wish you the best of luck. And I hope that something I said steered you towards or away from, you know, a good bet or a bad bet, respectively. So appreciate you guys for your time. Appreciate Gordo for having me on the channel. Appreciate our man Chance for stopping by as well. Unfortunately, your boys got to get going because I got to get some strangling in before the night is out.
All right. Thank you very much, my friend. Have a good one.
Absolutely, brother. Be well, Gordo. We'll catch you soon.
Cheers, brother. And just like that, there is one. Chance had a dip because his phone died. Liam's out strangling people, and there's just me. I think for this one, if I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate, is just Poirier's one tough guy. We've seen Oliveira not quit, but he's very good and elusive on the feet for that very first round. And even at that, Chandler was able to put him down in that very first round too. I think I'm giving more credit to Poirier than they are. No bet on it yet. If I get like anything near -120, -125, I will. Money's pouring in on Oliveira, so I don't know yet. I might get there. I might not. Who knows? End of the day, I have a lot of spots that I'm really liking anyways. If you want to find them, you know where to find me on Twitter at GamblesGordo. I want every single one of you right now to go comment your DraftKings username under that other video. Make some money, take some money from me. I appreciate you guys all hanging out with us. And yeah, let's make some money. Cheers, guys.